Well, in this little video I talk about why you cannot use an electric generator, alternator, petrol driven alternator on board a sailing boat, and other ways in which you can get rid of your diesel engine, and whether it suits your size boat or not. Enjoy. Well, we have a few more things have arrived. It's good that I got the thread size right, so that's for the steering wheel, so that fits, that's good. We're just waiting for the other bit now. And I've got two little pulleys, dinghy pulleys, but these will do for they've got ball bearings in them, high pressure ones, and so these will do for the steering. I still need another 3 of those to make sure I get the same size, the matching size. So it's not very big, maybe 8 mil, so we'll have to see. Well, even that, 6 mil, maybe 6 mil. Okay, then our cable arrived. So this cable doesn't fit the iPhone when it goes into that bracket, so I got a special cable for that. I'll show you. Okay, this is now our iPad in its case, and you can see it's working pretty good. And the subscription on here is UK, Ireland and Holland, if you can see that, £35. That's really good. So I was looking at some other options. There's a thing called Savvy Navi. It's going to cost me more to use Savvy Navi, so this one is cheaper. And also there's if you get the Europe one, I notice it also covers the Azores. And it's funny because if you see, we've got Wales here. It's like the body and the head, the Anglesey is the head, Holy Island is the snake coming out of the third eye, if you like. Here's the mouth and the nose and the helmet, if you like. But then you'll see there's a shoulder, that's Conway and Llandudno. And if you have a look here, this is the arm, if you like, of Wales. And yesterday I drew a line to find out where it's pointing. I thought, no, I bet that's pointing at the Azores. So I put a mark in here and I drew the line to the Azores. And sure enough, this is actually pointing directly at the Azores. Now, if you look at that, that's an absolute picture of a human body. A warrior, really, pointing at the Azores. And that's the way to America. So if you sail straight through there, you get to the Azores, and then you carry on there, you get to South America. So it's actually a guide built into the landscape of the planet, showing the way to the New World. That's interesting. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Alright, so in the case we have now, it's not designed for this case, but fortunately it fits. And seems to fit pretty well. You see that rubber there? It goes around the edge there. So that's a bit lucky from the corner of the dagger that it actually fits. And I also made sure that I got a long cable, because, and a flexible one too. And so it's 2 meter cable, and the idea then is this can go through the steering box and out the other side and into the charger on the other side, so it's well out of the way of any moisture. And when it's inside, if this is on the chart table inside, then it can also, we have a long cable, flexible, easy to use. So it's worked out well, the cable. You don't know when you buy this stuff what kind of cable, it's going to be plastic or a nice nylon material. This is a nice nylon material, flexible. I have bought cables in the past which have turned out to be plastic. Be careful with that with eBay. I don't see how you can be, it's just your luck really. And I have the other cable I put away because I'm not going to be using it anymore. It's very important to have spare cables on board, and these connectors are very delicate, so it's the idea is not to get any moisture at all inside the iPhone plug. So when you're dealing with this, don't touch it with wet hands, it's very, very delicate. I'm very happy with my iPad. I think for the price, the £51 that I paid for it, there's not a mark on it. The battery is 100%. I think the iPad is new. I cannot see any mark on the screen or the back or anything. And as I say, from the cauldron of the Dagda, normally we're pretty lucky. People living from this are pretty lucky in what they get. And it's interesting, my dream that I had about this was a cracked screen iPad or iPhone, because I was considering buying an iPhone with a cracked screen to get it at a good price. And there's still, the cracked screen iPads and iPhones are selling for £50. And so the absolute minimum you can pay for an iPhone or iPad in any condition is about £50. So to get a perfect one with a perfect battery, the battery inside is worth that. And so I'm very pleased to get a nice new battery, a new iPad, and able to run Navionics perfectly good, in good way for £51. I think that's about as cheap a navigation system and good a navigation system as you can get for that price. I did some research on the price of the software. As you can see here, this is my research chart, and you'll see that iSailor seems to be inexpensive, but you have to buy many different products to actually get £84 worth of software to get what I wanted. On Savvy Navi it'll cost you £60, and on Navionics you can do it for, actually it's 35, I think. It said 40 on their website, and you don't need to buy the Azores one because the Azores comes on the Central and European one. So for about £60 you can get the whole of Europe and England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales and the Azores and the best part of Spain for about £60. So that's what I'll be doing. I won't be doing it this month, that's for sure, because I'm completely spent up now. And I'm waiting for my jigsaw. See, the blades arrived, and as you can see they're orange, which I like to make sure that everything, orange and gold, so these should be, it says here, finest cut, fine cut, long life, less vibration. I believe it. Thousands wouldn't. And it has on the back here, it has the type of blade and the number and what it's good for cutting. And it's good for cutting, you know, I've got plastics here and sheet metals and pipes and so on. So I've got some good directions and some good blades to start off with my new jigsaw. And many drill bits for drilling stainless and other metal objects, which I found go through my drills. I need to break one drill and then I haven't got that size, and so this solves that problem. Okay. Just to give you a size comparison between the two, you can see how difficult this one is to use compared to the other one. And you could probably steer a boat on it just so that it's actually a more powerful computer this than that iPad I showed you. You can see it works pretty good on the iPhone SE. And I'm logged into the same Navionics system, and so should work on both the iPad and the iPhone, hopefully. Right, now I just wanted to talk about Wildlings Sailing. They have an interesting video at the moment, just loaded up yesterday, and this video shows him bodging a job, knowing he's bodging it, because what's happening is he's learning to not bodge jobs, to actually do things in a proper way. And what I told you in the previous video was that when you're learning something new, you always have to do it one more time, make the mistake one more time, knowing that you're making the mistake and that you're bodging it. And this is programming it into your brain so that the next time you won't bodge it. And so, Wildlings Sailing, they're a great channel and really an inspiration for anybody who's interested in getting an old boat and seeing whether you can buy a boat on the cheap and get away with doing it up and come out with something good in the end. And their boat is a very, very fine catamaran, and that they got for a very low price, and I think they're lucky with what they've got. But they will have to learn how to deal with this engine somehow. And talking about engines, I need to tell you about another dream that I had. Some dreams are visionary in that you're like you're in another world and you're living in that world and it's just like real life. That's called a vision. And some are more of a thought process going on in your brain whilst you're asleep that you're aware of. And it seems like it's not you doing the thinking is actually coming from some higher place. And this dream in particular demonstrates this, because one could think, oh, it's just my brain, it's just like a cabbage, it's producing bigger fruit and my brain is just growing and this is just me growing this answer. But I'd like to tell you that there's more to it than this, because all of the brains and all the growth and development that's happening in the world is all connected into a oneness. And so we're all learning certain things, and what we're learning can come to us from outside of our own brain. It can come to us from the universal brain, the universal mind, if you like. And so this morning, what I've been working on was, I've been working on a way in which I could get rid of my diesel engine. I would love to get rid of my diesel engine, and it's funny because boat designers have always wanted to do this, and any boat designer that goes through the process that I'm going through with trying to get rid of the diesel engine eventually comes to the point where they realize that the diesel engine is the only solution to the problem. Now that was until recently, because we now have electricity, we have solar panels, and this is something that's new and is causing us to reevaluate whether it's possible or not to get rid of the diesel engine. And because of this electrification of my own sailboat, I was trying to think of ways that I could get rid of the diesel engine. One idea I had was that we might replace it with an inexpensive petrol generator, and that this petrol generator, if it could generate around about 40 amps of current, and I was looking at buying a cheap Japanese Honda copy motor. I think you can buy them for less than £100, and putting a car alternator on that and running that, and putting that in place with my diesel engine and generating enough power to drive my trolling motor. And so there's nothing more I know. I mean, I know everything, yeah, and it can't come from my own brain. And then this morning I woke up and said, no, you cannot do this because it's too dangerous. This is interesting because petrol evaporates and can accumulate in bilges, and it's a recipe for a bomb. And boat designers have known this forever, and some tried to get around it by putting, special systems in, and our modern car is a perfect example of where we scavenge the fuel vapours coming out of the petrol tank and put them back through the engine and so on. But you can't really do this in a boat. It's not practical. And certainly not available on cheap Chinese imported engines. And so really my idea goes out of the window. But it did lead me in the right direction. It did lead me to consider certain things. And in the end, all moving parts on any machine are really a bit of a mistake. And you'll notice that a sailboat is a perfect object because it has very, very few moving parts. In fact, the only moving parts on the sailboat are these things, which pretty well last forever and don't cause any damage to the environment. So a sailboat is an example of a perfect technology in tune with nature. Now, let's pause there. Now this is what changes everything. Because if you can power something with solar panels, you essentially have a sailboat that can sail without wind. And although we don't have an absence of wind often, not all the time, when we have it, it can be a great danger to sailing vessels if they're close to the shore. And so to have some way to propel us when we're close to the shore and the wind is gone, and this also means that it's not going to be very, it's not going to be hard to drive the boat if there's no wind, okay? So we're in a situation which is ideal for low power solutions. So we come to another issue with sailboat design and choice, and that is size of boat, because just as there is a limit to the size of a boat you can propel with an oar, there is also a limit to the size of the boat that you can propel with a trolling motor. And that limit is probably around about the size of my boat, 22 feet, although probably there are many 30-footers that you could do it with, because my boat, I've noticed that my boat is just as big as many 30-footers out there, which are much narrower, long and thin, compared to my boat, which is a little bit more short and fat. So you can see why we're moving to smaller sailboats, because first of all they're stronger, so they have better seakeeping qualities. And you might wonder about that, but it's true, because if a wave smashes into an object, the bigger and more heavy that object is, the more resistance it provides to the forces of nature, and therefore the easier it can be stove in. And so if a boat is lighter and smaller, it can be pushed more easily around the ocean and not actually be compressed and damaged. Okay, that's something to think about. And then of course we have the size, as you increase the size, so the strength of the structure needs to be exponentially greater also. Okay. So my dream really was leading me to the conclusion that I have to find a way to power my sailboat without the diesel engine. And the diesel engine has become for me an emergency situation only solution. And this might be, well, you know, what I did learn when I almost ran aground onto the Lizard Point in Cornwall was that at that point in time, if I'd have tried to start my engine, which I didn't have an engine to start at that point, if I'd have tried to start my engine to get out of trouble there, I probably would have just ended up on the rocks, because there was no time for that. The sail was up, we were sailing, and it was necessary to all hands to the sails and use a sail to sail off that lee shore. And a modern sailboat that can sail well into the wind is suited to this kind of problem. If you've got a square rigger, you've got no chance at all. You're just not going to be able to get yourself off that lee shore. Now, if you can sail 90 degrees to the wind, you can do it. The only thing I can do now is just wait and see what happens with this system, because all of this is, I'm being led to this solution from the cauldron of the Dagda, so I can only assume that it's going to work, just like the iPad worked, or I'm learning something. And either way, I'm happy to go with that. If I had a larger sailboat, 35 or 40 foot, this would not be an option, and there is no option really to run a boat of this size on solar panels. You'd have to fill the whole boat full of solar panels, and it wouldn't be practical on a sailing boat. It's also necessary to have systems which, you know, I was looking for the solution where the trolling motor can run forever, and I think it's asking a bit much from these systems. If the trolling motor can run for the length of your battery, let's say you have 120 amp hours, something like this, this is going to be enough to get you out of most situations into an area of safety where perhaps you can put the anchor down. In the end, your safety device is your anchor, which I started off with in this video. And just to let you know that I painted my anchors and I now moved them out the house, and they're in the boot of the car, all ready to go back onto the boat when I leave here next time. And so I've started to fill the boot of the car, so I know it's not that far away. And once the jigsaw arrives and I can get stuck into some of the woodworking aspects that I've been waiting on, I can prepare what I need for my next trip. And my next trip really involves having the anchor systems in place, the motor systems weighed up, and the steering system done. Which of course is a system not only to steer the boat, but it's also to steer the wind vane as well. Which is why we have double blocks, because the double blocks, one of the blocks takes the line from the tiller to the steering, and the other block takes a line from the tiller to the wind vane. Perfectly suited for that job. in actual fact, the rope is actually continuous, because what it does is it goes to the wind vane, and then it goes to the tiller, and it goes through the tiller through a locking mechanism to the block on the other side, and then to the steering, and the other one does the opposite. So whenever you have it locked, you're moving the tiller, and when you have it unlocked, you're moving the wind vane. When you have it locked, the wind vane is also moving the tiller, and it's moving the steering as well. So if you grab hold of the steering to make a course correction with it locked on the tiller, you're moving both the tiller and the wind vane, correcting yourself, and release it, you're back on course again. Okay, so we can't buy anything else this month, but what we can do is buy something next week, because we get paid. Thank goodness.